Welcome to the latest installment in our UXDX online series. I hope you're as excited as I am for the talks that we have today. But before we jump into those, I want to give a very quick introduction to UXDX and why we host these sessions. So at UXDX, our kind of motto or the problem we're trying to solve is the fact that the world is full of bad software. And what I mean by this is not necessarily kind of bad features and things like that. I always go back to the banking app. I have a traditional bank app and I have one of the new digital first bank apps. And technically they do the exact same feature set, but they're a world apart in terms of the usability and which one I'll reach for when I want to do something. And we believe that that's actually down to the processes that these companies follow and nothing to do with the quality of the people working on these products. So our mission is to help companies build an environment that can't build bad software, because a lot of times you hear all the challenges, or particularly with UXDX, where we try to break the barriers between product, UX design and dev, because we keep hearing that the barriers and the handovers are where the problems lie. So how we try to implement this mission is we want to help companies shift from a waterfall, or more commonly water scrum fall approach, to really truly empowered product teams. Now that's really easy to say, but it's really hard to do in practice because you end up breaking all of these other processes around the business. So that's where these talks come in. No talk is going to give you the entire how you're going to change your business, but the idea behind it is that people will share new things that they're trying, new ways of working, and how that's benefiting them. And they'll also share the challenges they've overcome. As the talks are going on, hopefully you'll think of some questions about how you could potentially apply this in your kind of situation or your environment. So please do write those questions in on whichever platform you're watching this on, and we'll put those questions through to the speakers. But that's enough from me. You're not here to listen to me speak. So I'd like to welcome our first speaker for this evening, which is Katie Schmidt, who's a user experience manager at ServiceNow. And Katie will be talking about how to keep people the focus in an AI-centric world. So I'd like to welcome Katie to the stage.
Thank you, Rory. It's a pleasure to be here today with all of you, and I'm so excited to share some personal learnings that I've had while working in an AI-centric world at ServiceNow. So today we'll be talking about how to keep people the focus, something that's very important to all of us. Just a quick little background about me. I have over 8 years of experience in UX research and UX design, and also as a UX manager. And for the past 2.5 years or so, I've been leading an AI UX research team at ServiceNow and really working with a cross-functional group of folks to help drive ethical, human-centered AI experiences. It's not something that was on my bingo card as a UX research professional, but it's something that I've fallen in love with over the past couple years. So today I'm going to take you through 3 areas and hopefully share some of my key learnings with you, and have some engagement as well. So first, we'll talk a little bit about human-centered AI, or HCAI, and the UXer. So what it is and why we matter as UX to the world of human-centered AI. Next, I'm going to share with you some principles for AI experiences. These are 6 core principles that build trust between humans and AI. These are 6 key things that we've learned over our time doing research around AI experiences, and I'm excited to share them with you today. And lastly, I'm going to share a little bit about how to lead teams through generative AI. This has been a crazy time, and I'm sure a lot of you have experienced this personally. So I want to share just a couple key learnings about how to actually lead UX teams through these historic moments. So let's get right into it. What is human-centered AI, or HCAI? I borrowed this definition from ServiceNow's responsible AI guidelines, but ServiceNow by no means is the pioneer around HCAI, or the first people or business to bring this into how we operate. So there's a lot of great information out there in the world. But what human-centered AI really is the development and deployment of AI systems that prioritize needs, values, and well-being centered on the human. So alarm bells should be going off in your head right now, right? Of course, UX is the perfect discipline to help support a very human-centric approach for AI. But this definition is a bit academic, right? So, what does it mean in practice? And I pulled a couple of favorite quotes for you about the interaction of people in AI. So, Andrew Ng is a globally recognized leader in AI. I'm sure you've heard his name if you've done any reading up on AI. He says AI is a tool, it's up to us to decide how to use it. So, just like anything else that you might have at your disposal in your UX toolkit, or when you think about a hobby that you enjoy, let's say cooking or knitting, right? AI is a tool that you bring to the table to create something great. But it's really up to humans to bring their creativity and inspiration to make the best use of it. Jeffrey Hinton, also known as the godfather of AI, also says that the real power of AI comes from combining human ingenuity with machine learning. So, again, bringing forward this theme that AI is just a tool, right? Machine learning is a tool that's available to us, but it's how we decide to use it as humans that really makes it uh, have great potential. And if there's only one thing you walk away with from today's talk, this is my message to you. The more human centered we are, the better AI will work for us. So, this is my thesis, if you will, my proposal, my belief as a UX research manager and leader in this space. I have truly seen that the more human centered we lean as we're building these AI experiences, the better that AI technology is going to work for us and for our needs. So, we'll dive into this a little bit more deeply, but keep that in mind as we're learning today. So I wanted to also take a moment and share my perspective on what UX's role is in human-centered AI. And so this is across all UX practitioners, not just researchers. And these are a couple of things that I've seen in my time managing teams in this area, as well as working with a number of cross-functional groups. The first thing that I've noticed is that UX is very uniquely situated to communicate user needs and translate that to design in an AI-centric world, right? So we are already coming to the table with a deep knowledge of how users interact with experiences and products and in their context of use. And a lot of the tools that we already employ to do our work can apply in AI experiences. The next thing I've learned is that we are really helpful when it comes to determining an appropriate and responsible use of AI. This should make you a little nervous, right? This is an incredibly important responsibility, and it's not just UX that holds this responsibility, but we are a key player when it comes to working with other teams to determine when AI should be used, when AI can provide a significant benefit to users and humans, and when is the appropriate place to bring that AI in? Because, spoiler alert, right? AI is not the appropriate technological solution for every single problem that humans have. Another aspect that UX excels at in building these AI experiences is actually designing experiences with trust building mechanisms and guardrails. We're going to talk a lot about trust today in this talk, and that will help kind of set the stage, right, for how foundational trust is to having any adoption of these AI experiences. But we're really good at that already as UXers, right? We think ahead about how do we get users to have a good experience, and what makes up a good experience we know is not just how it looks, but also how it feels and what value the user gets from it. We're also experts in making sure that AI or generative AI is appropriate for a context of use. You'll hear us who've been researching in this AI experience field for a while talk a lot about the importance of context of use, because knowing your personas, right, and knowing how those personas are potentially using AI in their context is something that we can help highlight and bring knowledge to for our cross-functional teams. We're also some of the best people to make sure that AI is the best solution to solve a problem, because we're really good at getting to the core of that problem and what's causing those problems or opportunities for our users. And lastly, something else that is so crucial with AI experiences, and particularly generative AI, is how rapidly our users change their beliefs, willingness to trust, interest, all these elements, right, that come together to actually test, use, and incorporate AI into their lives. And why that's important from a UX perspective is that it means our design approaches, the way we build in guardrails, the way we assess and understand people's willingness to try AI is going to change over time. So we're a great, well situated group of practitioners to be able to drive that regular assessment of these experiences. Now, because I do come from a UX research background, I wanted to dive just a second deeper on what UX researchers' role is. And I fully acknowledge that a lot of us are playing multiple roles on our teams. And so I hope that this can also apply to others who are often taking on UX research roles, but not exclusively doing UX research. There are four principles that we've brought to our UX research AI team at ServiceNow to help kind of anchor our best practices. And we share this with our other UX researchers across the company to help them better tackle and understand how different AI experiences can be from doing traditional types of UX research. The first principle is to learn. Be curious and ask questions. It's really important that when you are thinking about AI considerations and experiences, you understand how this technology changes things like data readiness, bias, risks, and how the state of the technology can also impact the experience for users. So this is a really key thing. You're going to always be learning in this stage, and not necessarily becoming an expert in AI, but having a good working knowledge. Second, be the champion of your user. You have to learn those user mental models around AI specifically and their expectations with AI and track that rapid change that I mentioned on the previous slide. Of any experience type I've ever worked on, and with any other seasoned UX practitioners in the field, what we're seeing the most is how rapidly these expectations are changing with our users. So it's our priority, right, to be on top of those things. Next, AI experiences are all about building trust, right, and prioritizing those human needs. So there are real consequences to when AI is inaccurate, bigger consequences than when certain mechanisms you're used to in digital experiences don't work, right? These consequences can be harmful sometimes. They can have bias, and it can really impact people's willingness to trust, especially dependent on how they're using the AI. If they're using an AI in their daily work, which could impact their performance, for example, that's going to have a greater impact on their willingness to trust and re-enter an experience. Lastly, can't emphasize enough, ensure AI is solving a real world problem. There's this tendency, and it's a very human tendency, right, to just put new technology on everything, to get excited about its potential, to bring it in, to want people to try it, to use it, to see the value in it. But quite frankly, there are just some things that AI is not good at. It doesn't fix every problem that humans have. And so we want to make sure we're solving for real appropriate pain points with our users. All right, so that is HCAI very quickly and a little bit about UX's role in ensuring that we really create these human-centered AI experiences. And now I'm excited to kind of transition into a very actionable piece of this talk. I want to share with you some of the principles that we have discovered while working on AI experiences. And these principles are the things that we found to drive true human centeredness, right, as we are thinking about these AI experiences. Uh, and I think it's really also important to emphasize that all of these elements that we're going to go through, the whole point of bringing these forward and studying them and emphasizing them in the design of our AI experiences is because they are the things, the mechanisms that build trust. So we've talked about how important trust is in an AI experience for your users to adopt the technology to get the most value out of it, to maintain this sense of human centeredness, right, in these experiences. So through many years of research, both on traditional AI experiences and now generative AI, these six principles are what we found to hold the most true as the key mechanisms that drive trust in these experiences. So we'll go through each of these one by one, and I'm going to share some specific things that you can do when you're thinking about designing these experiences to help support these different principles. All right. So the first principle is control. In short, give the human control over the AI. It's incredibly important that the human always feels in control and feels like the driver, right? Where AI might be considered the passenger, the co pilot, the backseat driver, if you will. We want the human to have control over the AI. In an experience setting, especially a digital experience, some of the examples of things that you can do to help the user feel that they're in control and actually give them tangible control are to create mechanisms so they can ignore AI suggestions or hide AI within the experience, that they can pause the use of AI. So instead of having it be a constant companion within their experience, that they can actually pause it. You want people to be able to choose to use an AI output, especially when we're thinking about generative AI. So if you have a prompt, you're asking it to summarize something, and you end up liking the summary, and you want to attach that to your work. That needs to be an action that the human has control over, and not necessarily something that happens automatically. We also want to be able to give users the option to redirect the AI. So give it give it feedback right within, and we'll talk a little more about feedback later. But give it feedback to redirect towards what the human's actually looking for it to do. Also remove AI inputs if they are automatically inserted, but also have that option to insert themselves. So these are just some examples, but the whole point is that you're giving the user control over how the AI is assisting them, right, in the experience. The next key principle is human oversight. So the humans should oversee the AI and not the other way around. When you think about an AI overseeing a human, that's where you start to get these doomsday scenarios and start to kind of like roll into a very unideal future, right, with AI. So, one of the ways that we maintain trust in these experiences and keep it very human centric is having that human oversight. This includes things like monitoring the value, the health, the impact of the AI, and having very clear, understandable metrics that are associated with the AI's performance. It also has to do with general control, like we talked about in the first pillar, having control over that AI and being able to bring it in and out as needed. And of course, value measurement, right? So, what is the value that we're getting from the AI? And that should be determined and ultimately understood by humans. The third principle is transparency. Never hide the use of AI. It can be very tempting, right, to put AI in the background, to have these generations of AI because you know that it provides value in the experience. But at this stage in our journey to create human-centered AI experiences, we don't want to hide the AI from the human user. We want to make sure that there are clear indicators of when AI is at work, where the sources are that it's pulling the information from. If any of you have played around with Gemini or Copilot or ChatGPT, you know exactly what we're talking about here when it provides sources back to you when you ask a question or ask it to summarize something. But when you're extending that to experiences that you're creating and using AI to enhance, you want to make sure that people are fully aware that AI is there at work. The fourth principle is guardrails. So we want to assume nothing when it comes to AI ethics and responsibility. Uh, we encounter this actually quite a bit working within the more world of work or employment, business, corporate scenarios at ServiceNow. Our customers are often actual end users working at companies, right? So they are employee users. And what we found in a lot of our research is that they are assuming if the company is providing them with something to use, that it is safe for them to use, that they do not need to necessarily double check whether or not they're allowed to use something, whether or not it's correct, if it is giving truthful information, right? So it's really important that we, as the UX practitioners working on these experiences, have an assumption of responsibility for AI ethics. Now, there's a number of things that you can do building in guardrails into an experience, having the ability to filter data, right, by things like confidence or output confidence. You can include bias mitigation in the building of your models, and that's not a place that we typically think of UX supporting, but it's very much an important place for us to be a part of in building those models, providing feedback to it, considering other aspects of the people that are going to be interacting with those large language models. And also just having user warnings, right? Like, yes, your company is giving you this thing to use that's generative AI powered, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's always accurate or truthful. And it can potentially make up answers when the data is not there for it to pull from. Explainability is the next principle. This is all about creating context within the design and content, good content design, right, within your experience. So making sure that we're explaining concepts and terms and managing expectations. You don't want to assume that your users understand anything about AI. We are, of course, seeing a growing interest in trying AI and applying it for different things. People have a much more comfortability, I would say, with AI even from a year ago. But that doesn't mean that they understand what's happening in the experience. So you want to work with your team to understand how much guidance is necessary for that whatever that user is, whatever their context of use. What is their mental model about AI or generative AI? And what are some things that we can or should do within the experience to help them use AI most effectively? So, a lot of us in this field, not just at ServiceNow, but working across companies that are employing generative AI, are leaning in more to over explaining and working with content designers, right, to find the best way to communicate these principles. I do expect that's going to change over time. We're already seeing a shift in mental models, but that's again why it's so important that we keep up with how our users are thinking and feeling about these experiences. The last principle is one of the ones that sounds very easy to do, but is actually incredibly challenging in practice to implement effectively in an experience. And this is feedback contestability. This is all about having human powered feedback and reporting. This is about the human interacting with the AI and experience and being able to create feedback for that AI and drive that feedback experience. We don't want the AI doing feedback on itself, right? We don't want it to kind of just keep learning from the same things over and over. So we have to provide corrections to it and feedback and ways of improving that model. Some experienced designers and AI practitioners, right, drive a more human-centric model input. So they'll take end user feedback from the experience. Sometimes that's a thumbs up, thumbs down, and they'll take that in more at a less automated way, and they will use that feedback to drive model improvements. That's a place where UX research and UX design can really play a significant role. Other approaches include more automated types of feedback where the AI is actively learning from a thumbs up, thumbs down, for example, with more granular feedback attached, or having a specific reporting tool that automates those changes. So there's a lot of different ways that people are exploring doing it. But the point is that the human needs to be able to give that feedback, and say, why an experience is good or not, and what's happening with that AI that might not be ideal. And of course, you always want to have some way for users to report unethical transgressions by the AI, concerns about the outputs of an AI or how it's working within a system. All right. So that was our six principles, right, that we've learned through several years of research now that really help drive trustworthy experiences. But the last thing I want to share with you today are three key learnings that I've had leading teams in this space. And some of these things may sound obvious, but I'm going to share with you why they have been such an impactful learning for me, leading these teams. The first thing, and probably the most important, personal learning I've had is that when you are going through these historic technology moments, as a leader, as a participant in these moments, this is the time to be the most human you've ever been, right? It's the time to have the most understanding, the most patience, the most thoughtfulness, the biggest desire to connect with others that you're working with and outside of those that you're working with to best understand your user. This is the time, of any time to not assume anything, right, about people you're working with or the people that you're designing and building experiences for. Um, it seems counterintuitive, right? But what I've seen is that we get so excited by the technology and the pace at which we're moving in this field to keep up with it and provide the right support. And we found this wonderful opportunity as UX practitioners to be front and center in building these great adoptable experiences. Um, that we sometimes let those things overshadow, right? The foundational aspects of creating a great team that can do great work. So if you find yourself on one of these teams, leading one of these teams, adjacent to one of these teams, right? Take the extra time to connect as humans and to drive a very thoughtful approach to how we do the work, and not just how we execute on the work. And I truly believe that like that kind of foundation is what's led us, to have more human-centered experiences as an end result. So, not the time to not be a people first leader, and actually the time to be the most people centric you've ever been. The next key learning is that you have to really understand the impact of technology on your users. So you cannot effectively understand AI experiences without the knowledge and risks and how they impact trust, like we've talked about today. And those things are things like data security, data bias, inaccurate outputs. You can't underestimate how those things can impact that trust in those experiences, and how that long term impacts users. And as I mentioned earlier, we're seeing rapid change, and so sometimes if we have these longer cycles of building and deploying, we are going to hit this stride where we're always behind, right? We're always behind our users, what they need, what they're thinking, what they want, their expectations with AI. And so if you have a better understanding and lean in a little bit more, not to necessarily be an AI expert, but to be able to understand the language that your cross-functional teams are using and the risks associated with this type of technology, you're going to be that much more prepared to advocate for your users. And lastly, make some sacrifices, but only some. So with all this pressure, right, to integrate technology, to be the first, right, in these experiences to drive adoption, we sometimes go too fast, right? And what I've seen is that having a really solid foundation and understanding of your users, the experience, and how we can grow that and strategize that over time is the key to actually learning quickly and to moving quickly. So if you jump right in head first, if you make too many assumptions, right, about your users, you're going to have challenges with AI experiences. But that's not to say that it shouldn't be an iterative approach or that shouldn't be incredibly malleable over time. It just means that this is the time to make sure that you're operating as one true cross-functional team, and not a time to isolate as UXers and push through, right, our work without really understanding that bigger picture and long-term impact. It's been a pleasure so far sharing everything that I've learned with you in a short amount of time. So, if there's three takeaways for you today, these are it. First, UX plays a significant role in the success or failure of a human centered AI future. If we want the best possible experience, we have to continue to play this role and be uncomfortable with how important our role is as UX. Second, we all need to be smarter about the factors that lead to an unpalatable future with AI. Nobody wants the doomsday scenario. Nobody sees that as a good outcome for humans. But the way that we combat that is through learning about the technology and how it applies to the experiences that we're creating and supporting. And by being educated in that, you can better see how to mitigate some of those challenges and bring a more human centric driving approach to these AI experiences. And lastly, creating a strong team to work on these experiences is crucial, and everybody plays a role in that. Whether you're a manager, a team lead, in your first job out of university, right? This is everybody's role to make sure that we're taking the time to connect as humans and really understand what everyone's point of view is, how we bring that together, and how we problem solve as a team. So bringing back that thesis of the day, the more human-centered we are, the better AI will work for us. Thank you so much for your time today, and please do feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Katie. It was really informative because we've all heard the horror stories of AI making too many decisions and being too automated and it not turning out well for people.
It's true. It's scary.
Yeah. So hopefully some people can take some insights from that and apply it. Unfortunately, we don't have time for questions, but if anybody has any questions, please do write them in and we'll share those with Katie and we can probably share them on the Slack channel or something like that. So please do feel free because Nicole, for example, has put in her thanks rather than a question, but saying thanks for the information, Katie.
Great. Thanks so much.
So up next, we have Shantelle Louis, who's the e-commerce UX designer at Zoom. And Shantelle will be talking about UX improvements to reduce customer friction in online checkout. So I'd like to welcome Shantelle to the screen. Hi, Shantelle. If you can just share your screen.
Sure. 1 second.
There we go. You're all set to go. So best of luck. Thank you.
Thank you, Rory. Hi, everyone. Good morning, good evening, wherever you're joining. Thank you for joining me today at the UX-DX. Today, I'm very excited to dive into a crucial aspect in e-commerce space, reducing customers' friction in the checkout process from user experience perspective. By understanding the challenge users face and implementing effective UX strategies, we can create a seamless and enjoyable online shopping experience for all. To start with, I'd like to give a quick background of myself. I am a designer with experience in UX, UI, and visual design. I'm currently working at Zoom as a senior UX designer, where I'm creating design solutions to help users easily purchase and manage the Zoom products online. Throughout my career, I'm lucky enough to have the privilege to work with some large tech companies and public sectors where I learned how to design at a scale for a global audience. Over the past 5 years, I've been working on e-commerce UX design for both physical and digital products, which helped me gain a unique insights on how to reduce customer friction in the online checkout through a UX lens. So today, my presentation is gonna divide into 3 parts. First, I'm gonna talk about the why behind the online abandonment. in the checkout process. And then I'm gonna share some top 5 recommendations we can use in the UX research part to understand why users abandon the checkout, how we can improve the UX in the online checkout perspective. And lastly, I will talk some high-level design strategies to enhance online shopping experience for our users. First of all, let's start by exploring the phenomenon of checkout abandonment in great details. According to Beima Institute research, the average documented online shopping cart abandonment is around 69.57%. This means nearly 7 out of 10 online shopping carts are abandoned before the transaction is even completed, which is a very high number. It involves a lot of science, psychologies, and business decisions. So not everyone made it all the way through to the end. So there are a lot of reasons behind that, which we're gonna talk about in a second. And why this is so important. I'm gonna share a quote I like very much from Thomas Watson, which is the founder of the IBM. The good design is good business. In the e-commerce space, a well-designed user experience directly translates into higher conversion rates and customer loyalty. So it's very good for both the end users and the business. That's why the UX is very important when it comes to the e-commerce space. And here are some 6 common reasons why people have such a high abandonment rate in the online checkout process. The checkout abandonment represents a very significant loss of potential revenue for e-commerce business. By reducing abandonment rates, business can significantly increase the conversion rates and revenue without acquiring additional traffic. That's why it's important to understand the costs for the online checkout abandonment. From my perspective and the studies I have read, there are various reasons, and those are the top 6. The first is unexpected costs, such as the shipping fees or the taxes added during the checkout, which can sometimes become a surprise for the users, and that causes abandonment. The second is lengthy and complicated process. We might all have the experience to go through online checkouts that have like multiple steps, multiple pages, and that just can create some free ticks for the users. And third reason is the concerns about the website security, especially during the payment information entry. The fourth one is requiring users to create an account before the checkout, so users have to commitment to a business before they go through to see what's behind that checkout process. And that's why a lot of companies use checkout as a guest as like one of the solutions. And the next one is the payment options. This one is very common for localized market if you are a global business. For some localized market, if you lack of the payment options that they are familiar with, one that might be accessible for them, that might cause some issues for them to drop out, to force them to drop out in the online checkout. And the last one is usability. A bad or poor design will create difficulty for users to navigating or understand what steps they need to make in the online checkout process. That's why they might just drop out because they don't know how to proceed to the next steps. So those are the common reasons, and that kind of leads to the second part of my presentation, which is some like common methodologies we can use to discover a little bit deeper about the user behaviors. The first is heat maps at the session recordings. Heat maps visually represents where user clicks, moves the cursor, or scroll on a web page. By analyzing heat maps of the checkout page, we can identify the hotspots and the cold spots from the users. The hotspots are the areas where users frequently interact or engage on the website, which can indicate a very high interest or the importance of certain part of the website. And the cold spots are the areas where users rarely interact which can suggesting some potential pinpoints of the frictions or disinterest from the users. On the other hand, session recordings provide even deeper insights by capturing individual users' interactions in real time. There are a lot of tools to do that. By rewatching those session recordings, we can discover some navigation patterns to see how user progress throughout the checkout flows. And then we can see if there are any backtracking or hesitations happen to them. And then we can also learn about the interactions, how users fill out the form fields, how do they encounter any errors or corrections they have to make during the process. So by analyzing those two things, we can pinpoint specific areas in the checkout that has potential improvements or potentially cause confusions to the users. Next is A/B testing. This is a great way to get some quantitative data from the users at a very large scales, and it's very common for a lot of the e-commerce. That's why when you go to a website, sometimes you'll see different versions because they're testing different variants. And we have done a lot of that at Zoom as well. A/B testing involves like comparing two or more versions of a website to determine which one performs better in terms of user engagement or conversion rate. We can conduct like A/B testing of various elements of the checkout process, such as like the button placement and the design, the form fields layout and formats, and the progress indicators and the navigation cues, etc. So a lot of UI or UX perspective can be tested. And by measuring key metrics such as conversion rate, average order value, or engagement, click-through rate, we can identify which design variants lead to the highest level of user satisfaction and complication. The next methodology is my favorite, which is user surveys and interviews. Those can provide qualitative insights into user behaviors and motivates during the checkout process. We can ask a user a lot of questions to get a little bit deeper behind the behaviors, such as what factors influence your design decisions to complete or abandon checkout process, what specific pinpoints or frustrations did you encounter today, or like if you have a magic one, what suggestions would you make for this website? By collecting feedback directly from users, we can learn the underlying issues that may not be apparent or visible from just quantitative data alone. So this is a great addition on top of the A/B testing data to help you make data-driven decisions. The fourth one here is the user journey mapping, which is very common UX methodology in the research during the research phase. User journey mapping is very powerful to understand the holistic experience, the end-to-end journey of the users when they interact with the website, particularly during the checkout process. We can identify various touch points along the user journey, including initial site entry points, like where are they coming from? Do they coming from Google search? Do they come from the homepage? And how do they navigate through to the checkout process through the link or site banner or like a promotional banner, etc. And the interactions with the key elements such as product description, price information, and the shopping options, etc. to see where exactly help user make the final purchase decisions. User journey mapping reviews potential pinpoints and area of fractions that during the checkout process. And I have to point out, this is not like a one-time exercise. This is ongoing process based on the iterations and improvements. So it will needs to be updated over the course. So those are the user journey mapping. And the last UX methodology here I recommend, which I found very useful in my day-to-day job is usability testing. I use usertesting.com a lot to conduct quick user testing to learn about the user behaviors or the preference for specific design. And this involves observing real users as they interact with the checkout process or like a prototype in a controlled environment. We can recruit participants to perform specific tasks such as adding items to the cart, entering your shipping information, or completing a purchase using like a fake account, etc. By observing how users navigate in the checkout process, encounter obstacles or make the errors, and express the preference or frustration along the way, we can identify the areas of improvements and validate our design decisions from there. So those are the 5 UX methodologies that's been very helpful to identify the user pinpoints and discover user behaviors in the e-commerce space. And next, I'm going to move to some high-level UX strategies that will be very helpful to help reduce online frictions throughout the years I learned. One of the most effective strategy for reducing the friction in the checkout is to streamline it, minimize the number of the steps required from the users, and simplify each interactions. We like I mentioned earlier, one of the common reasons people drop out from the checkout is the lengthy and the complicated checkout process. So if there's a way we can implement a single page checkout, one page checkout, then we can minimize the number of the pages people have to see, so users feel like there's less steps they need to complete. So keep that momentum going is the key. We're removing unnecessary form fields and only requesting the essential information from users. In one of the redesign projects I worked on, we made a lot of decisions on what form fields to cut, to the point we only have maybe 2 optional fields we found from user. The rest of them are all required or necessary information we had to fulfill in the backend in order to complete that order. So we only ask what's necessary and reduce a lot of like unnecessary marketing or the data collection. And then the last one is providing clear and intuitive navigation cues, such as progress indicators or step-by-step guidance. One of the the common things we heard from users is that they don't know how long it's gonna take for them to complete the checkout, what information they need to prepare before they place the order. If we can give them a very clear guidance, a progress indicator, or like the step indicator, that will help users to understand how far they have made throughout the process and how easy the checkout can be. By reducing the complexity and eliminating unnecessary obstacles, we can make it very easy for users to complete the purchase and very quickly. In the world of the internet, customer service is important to remember that our competitor is just one mouse click away. So the simpler we can make them to use our products, the likely they're going to convert into paid customers. The next strategy is very important from a UX perspective to optimizing the form fields and the input elements. Because for the most part of the checkout, once you have the product configurations done, it's the time we take the information from the users. And then there are a lot of form fields that can stop users from moving forward. And we can enhance those usabilities by using autofill or autocomplete features from the native device or the browser extension to help users pre-populate some of the form fields whenever it's possible. So users don't have to manually input the form fields every single time, which can slow down the entire process. And then the error message or like the errors is a great way to prevent users to making a mistake. So if we can have real lifetime validation and provide immediate feedback for the users while they input the information, can help users understand if they have to fix something right away, instead of after everything has complete, they click one button and then realize that something they could help prevent. And the last one is grouping related form fields logically and using clear labels and placeholders. So on average, there are around like 20 to 30 form fields we need the users to complete, depends on how complicated your product is. By grouping them, users can easily find the related information, especially for the B2B business. Sometimes we need to ask them like business related information. If we can group them together, user will have the mindset and make and the logic to know how to enter those information if necessary. And the form fields, we can streamline the data entry process and minimize the user efforts. And this can result a very quick and seamless checkout experience. The third UX strategy I have here is to provide multiple payment options. As I mentioned earlier, payment options is one of the key factors when it comes to localized market and a different type of the online audience. By offering a variety of the payment options, we can accommodate a very diverse set of the user preference and help increase conversion rate eventually. We can support multiple payment methods based on the user needs and the countries they are in, so they can use whatever they fit the needs the most or whatever is accessible for them. So users don't always have a credit card, but they can have other options. Where we can provide flexible payment and split the payment into multiple installments to help users save the cost. So by catering the diverse needs of the customer base, we can increase the likelihood of completing transaction and foster a positive relationship with the users. The next one is very important. As Katie mentioned in her presentation, trust is the fundamental between the humans and the technologies. And it's the same thing when it comes to online checkout. Trust is a fundamental aspect of online shopping experience, especially during the checkout process, where users have to share some sensitive and personal information with the business. So if they don't trust you, they're not going to share that, they're not going to do the business with you. And we can build the trust and the transparencies by make sure we give users signals like this website is secure checkout, we have security badge, or SSL certificates, or anything to indicate that all the information is encrypted with the website, so users will feel confident to share the information with you. And then we need to provide very clear and transparent pricing upfront to let users know the total cost of the products or the services they're paying. So we don't want to have any surprise fees or like taxes coming at the very end. So that might change users' minds when they make purchase decisions. And then we can also offering some guaranteed returns or like a free trial experience. So we can demonstrate we want to commitment relationship with the users and they feel comfortable to buy the products if they don't have to make a commitment right away before they even try it out. So by fostering a trust and transparency, we can reduce users' concerns and instill confidence in reliability and integrity of the checkout process. And the next one is very important and sometimes can be ignored by a lot of business. Is the mobile device. A lot of websites will have very comprehensive and well-designed desktop experience, but when you translate to tablet or like mobile, sometimes that can create issues. And with an increased amount of users that has been like developing on the mobile device, this is a very crucial aspect for the business to look into for mobile optimization and the responsiveness. And the mobile optimization and the responsiveness is not just like translate whatever is the desktop into a smaller screen. It's actually by optimizing the UI and user experience, so it's easier for the mobile users to interact on their own mobile device. And the business can do so by implementing responsible design techniques to ensure all of the viewpoints looks really nice and clean. No text is gonna wrapped or broken when it comes to localization. We simplify the form fields input by minimizing the typing on smaller screens and provide a more user-friendly experience. Well, we can streamline the navigation. We use some specific interactions that mobile users are familiar with on mobile to help them to navigate the entire checkout process. Yeah, I think that's everything in my desk. Thank you everyone for listening today. I hope you found this very helpful. Feel free to connect me on LinkedIn and let me know if you have any questions. Now I'm gonna turn it over back to Rory.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Shantelle. That was really good kind of view of the different ways of just kind of looking at it's the last step of your process, but it can also be the most critical one. It's that kind of conversion point. So if anybody does have any questions out there, please do write them in on whichever platform you're watching this on, and we'll put those questions through to Shantelle. But I'm just going to ask one because it's a little bit of a kind of a cheeky question, but it's down to the build versus buy approach in a lot of software. At what point does it make sense just to use Stripe or something like that, which is a pre-built check-in flow where they have experts who are really kind of looking into this and trying to make it as efficient as possible versus trying to build your own checkout?
Yeah, that's a great question because I have worked with business to use both methodologies. I think Stripe is very well established, like a payment and a checkout enterprise, and they know what's the best for the users, and they have done a lot of researchers and the market research to understand what needs for different market, what compliance they need to make. So that's definitely very quick and convenient way to build a business from scratch. And saving wise is definitely like less things to maintain. But the drawback is there will be like a limitation in terms of like styling, formatting, or like you have to manage specific things into the Stripe like back end. And sometimes it depends on like the reliability of the service. If the service is down, which happened to our company before, then what's the backup you are gonna have is something like to think about. On the other hand, if you build something on your own, that means you have the full control and the full accountability to you. But that means you have to have the whole team to maintain a service, to maintain in different markets, the transaction, etc. So there are pros and cons for either method. So it all depends on what makes sense to the business. And for us, we've been using like Stripe and Zora for support our online checkout. It has worked great. But I think I would see like it depends on like whatever economical wise it makes sense to your business.
Yeah, I guess the big one is I'm sure Stripe's fees are higher than if you were managing your own checkout directly. So depending on the volume of trade you're doing, that could add up to quite a significant amount of money.
Yeah, exactly. I think this is true when it comes to development. Whenever like an APM you use, there's always some sort of fee associated with that. So it just depends on like
what
if
you
that
negotiate.
investment can like can make sense, can make make the balance eventually. Yeah.
Brilliant. We're actually out of time. I have a couple more questions that I'd love to ask, but we've run out of time. So to kind of be respectful for everybody, I'd just like to thank you once again, Shantelle, for sharing, and I hope everybody out there enjoyed it.
Thank you, Rory, for having me. Have a good rest of your day, everyone.
Yes. So that brings us to an end of our session today. But if you did enjoy it, please do consider joining us at our conference in Dublin in October. It's actually our last time in Dublin. We're going to be moving to a new city next year. We'll have 50 speakers. It's across the full product team, so product, UX, design, and dev. It's a fantastic experience if you're just looking for ways to kind of break free from some of the challenges that you're having. A great step out of the office, take a kind of higher level view, get inspired, meet new people. But if you can't join us at that, please do join us at our next UXDX online event. I'd like to finish off by thanking the speakers for sharing some fantastic talks today. And thank you for joining. Best of luck.